Hi guys, welcome back to the
Um,
Real Talk with Michelle podcast. Okay,
yes.
this is episode number 70, Real Talk with Araba Esoun. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. When I tell you, like, I have kind of watched your journey, you have went through
Yes.
my city, and I love to see you in
Mhm.
Memphis. It was beautiful. The way that
Yes.
you
Thank you.
showcased it. I think some people just don't get to see it like that. And it really
Mhm.
is a beautiful place with a lot of roots and it's black. And I think people just don't know that. Being in
Mhm.
Tennessee, to go somewhere and just look around and everybody looks like you
Yeah.
everywhere. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Mhm.
And I want to just give you a chance to introduce yourself to my listeners.
For sure. Well, first and foremost, I want to give thanks for the opportunity to share this space. I feel it's just very beautiful. I'm just grateful for this opportunity. And I am Araba Esoun, formerly known as Yolanda Manning. And I am originally from Nashville, East Nashville, Tennessee. I moved to Memphis around 2014 for graduate school, got my master's in public administration with a focus in health and food policy. And I've pretty much been on a journey of health, wellness, and plant-based eating. My the past, I would say 7 to 10 years. And so I've really just taken my own journey and turned that into my passion, my purpose, and being able to one, all the things that I've learned, all the things that I've taught myself in regards to this journey, I've now been able to share with the community, share with my family and friends, and honestly, anyone who's willing to listen and to receive what I have to share in regards to seasonal eating, health and nutrition, and just honestly taking our power back when it comes to preparing and serving our families good, nutritious, and wholesome foods.
Thank you. And I have received your offerings as
Mhm.
well on To Start a Tuesday,
Yes.
and it was great. So
Mhm.
I wanted to talk to you.
Yes.
Um, Talk a little about your early life with food, kind of growing up in Nashville.
Absolutely. So honestly, when I think back on growing up around food, it was honestly everything. I feel like it was a thing that I woke up to in the midst of the day, went to bed with, like it was just something that was a staple. And so most of my childhood memories do involve being in the kitchen, whether it was with my grandmother, with my grandfather, as well as with my mother at the dining table. I'm sitting at the dining room table right now that I was actually raised, the house I was raised in. And so right across is the kitchen. And so I've really spent most of my time in my younger years just around enjoying good food, but also understanding how to prepare foods. And so, at a very young age, of course, being raised in the South, naturally was raised on soul food as well as the standard American diet. So, junk foods, fast foods, but also some good Southern home cooked meals as well. So, I would like to say I had a great balance between those two worlds. But naturally was, I consumed a lot of salt, fat, and sugar. And I could remember like coming home from school and like craving 1 minute it was a bowl of cereal and then the next second it was ramen noodles, like having those things back to back. And now when I reflect back on those things, it's like that was a something I was navigating as a child. One, just because I enjoy those foods, but also as I'm getting older, I'm understanding that that is considered emotional eating and, looking to food for comfort and nurturing. And so I've now been able to take those experiences and work with them more and nurture them more so that I have two nieces, 10 and 15. And so I'm now able to incorporate the things that I've learned with them to ensure that they don't follow those same habits because it's very easy because when the food tastes good, it's hard to just put it down and look at it as fuel and
Yes.
not just as pleasure. So, but again, childhood was just food, food, food. I feel like that's really just the Southern cultured
The way.
thing for us. Yeah.
Pleasure first, and
Yes.
I don't think we look at it as what it should be, which is to also
Mhm.
nurture us and to be
Exactly.
fuel for how we move through the rest of the day.
Mhm.
And,
Yes.
that would take me kind of into my next question was like,
Mhm.
how did that influence you to start to look into your health and kind of change your
Mhm.
lifestyle when it came to food?
Absolutely. So I would say around 2010, I let me back up. I would even say before 2010, one, I've always navigated being overweight. And the doctors probably would consider it obese just based off of my height and age. But I always had this feeling or this inkling inside of me that was like, it won't always be this way, meaning like being overweight, but you have to change something. I didn't really know what that was, how to do it, but I knew that something had to shift. And so
Mhm.
I would always work out sometimes with my mom and go walking and things like that. But it never dawned on me that it could possibly be the food. And so it was around 2010. I was living with my boyfriend at the time, and his uncle was Muslim. So they, of course, do not consume any pork. And
Yeah.
so he was basically like, if you're going to be living in this house, you can't, don't bring none of that in here, you know?
My
No bacon, no sausage.
pork either, so we never had it in the
Mm,
house. But
yeah.
when he would go out of town, we might have some pork chops.
Exactly, right? And so he pretty much like laid down the law, you know, and I respected it, of course. And so I went about around 4 months without eating any of it. And so the moment I decided to eat it again, I was like at a Texas Roadhouse or something like that, and I got a pork chop. And when I tell you, Michelle, like not even after 10 to 15 minutes of eating it, I immediately like felt sick. Like my
Yes.
body started to break out into these hives. I started to sweat, and I was like, snap, like what is going
Like,
on, and
wow.
for
Yeah.
me, it only takes one time for me to like when it comes to food. If it's something around food that's affecting me, besides sugar, which is something I'm still navigating,
Yeah.
uh, as long as it affects me in a negative way, I'm able to pinpoint it and like redirect. And
We are
so that's what I did. And from that moment, it was like, okay, listen to your body and listen to how food is affecting you. And from that, it just kind of, I started to slowly cut out things and not necessarily wanting to, but realizing like, oh, this milk or this cheese or these certain dairy products are not working with me,
yeah.
so I didn't want to put my body or my mind and spirit into something that, yeah, it tastes good, but it's like if I got the bubble guts later on or like feeling awful to my stomach, then is it really worth it? So that's kind of how that journey began too.
We are the same in that way. And
Mhm.
people, and people, food is a thing where people try to give you and keep, like because
Mhm.
it's their thing and they like it's the way that they nurture you. But sometimes I'm just like, I just don't eat that. Like that's it. And I don't know
Right.
how to. I'm like, I'm so grateful that you offer me that, but I
Mhm.
like my body cannot, it just can't, it doesn't
Exactly.
do well with it. And I
Mhm.
know I'm gonna feel terrible later, so I just don't do it. So
Don't do it.
we are the
Exactly.
same in that way.
Mhm.
Um, so did your food transition kind of happen, or did you like turn it into what it is now when you moved to Memphis? I
Mhm.
think that's when I knew
Mhm.
we kind of we
Yes.
crossed paths. So
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So that was around 2010, 2011 when that happened. And so from there, I just slowly started to cut out things. And it wasn't necessarily like I'm striving to go vegan. It was just naturally things that weren't working for my body anymore kind of classified me in the category of being vegan. And so
First
I
time I've
remember,
heard it put that way too. I like
yes,
that. Yeah.
yes, yes. So
Okay.
I always tell people it's like, I didn't really ask to be vegan. It was like that's just kind of the, nothing's wrong with that, but I do realize it's a certain standard that comes with being vegan, and for me that wasn't my goal. My goal was always health and wellness and just to feel good in my body. And so when I moved to Memphis, I was already kind of like on the road to like vegetarianism. And so like I started to cut out eggs because those also weren't making me feel well. And I never really dabbled into fish, but it was chicken was the very last thing that I was like still holding on to.
Yay.
And then the exact same thing ended up happening with the pork, where it's like I would go months at a time without eating chicken. And then the moment I would reintroduce it, my body would immediately reject it. And so from there, it was like, okay, now I'm in Memphis, barbecue capital of America, which,
Good too.
you know, I was like, you're not eating any meat. There's not that many vegan restaurants out here. What are you going to do? So
What,
I
two?
literally, yeah, I literally was like, and I wasn't the type of person that was like, I like salads, but I'm like, there's only so many salads you can eat before you're just like, okay, I'm over this. And I remember just doing a little research and just saying, okay, let me grab a few things from the store and I'm gonna figure this thing out. And I would do like these, I would kind of call them, when I look back now, it's kind of like a Chipotle bowl because it was like rice, and I would just take a bunch of veggies and saute them. And then I would take marinara sauce. It was the most
Bowls are life
basic.
though. They're supposed to be whatever you feel like just toss it in
Exactly.
there. And that's what
Just
makes them
toss it.
exciting. Yeah.
So that's what I would do. And I would live off of that for like weeks at a time. And it wasn't until around 2015 I was like getting more into the kitchen and also getting more into seasonal foods. So I allowed like myself to go to the farmer's market, look and see what was available, pick up just random things, and then go home and say, okay, what can I create? And then that was kind of the birth of like, oh, it doesn't have to be this way. It can be any way you want this to be. So I started to
Mhm.
do that.
I love it.
Yes, yes.
And anybody who leaves a place and goes to Memphis has to tell me about their time there. Like how
Absolutely.
how was Memphis for you?
Yes, I'm grateful for that question. So it was a very I was actually talking to someone yesterday around it. Moving to Memphis for me was a very awakening experience.
Okay.
It awakened me to me, you know. I went there for grad school, so that was really my mission and my agenda for going there. I wanted to get away from Nashville as far as like moving away from home, but not too far. So it was kind of the perfect distance.
And
And went for
I'm
grad school.
here.
Huh?
I said I'm here for that reason too. I was like, I need
Mm,
to go away, but I also want to be close. So I can
exactly.
get there if I need to get there really quick.
Yes. So that's exactly that was kind of my mission, and grad school was my main focus. And so I remember going to Memphis, and within the first 4 months, it was, I don't even want to say it was a culture shock, and perhaps it is now that I'm actually pondering on it, but it was definitely like a shift in energy. It was like I was kind of like hit in the face with so many different things, like grad school, going vegan, like awakening to myself, like seeing myself in a whole new light, not having family present. So it was like a very abrupt change that I didn't necessarily know that was going to happen when it did. And so the first few months were very hard, naturally, because I think anytime anyone moves from a different place to another city, you don't know what to expect. And so
Exactly.
that was very, I say it was very challenging, but I feel like it was like this brother described it as like like going through the darkness to get to the light, and it was like I had to navigate some very tough times in order to see myself in the space I'm in now. I always tell people like if it wasn't for Memphis, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be doing this plant-based serving seasonal, knowing exactly who I am. I feel like Memphis created space and opportunity for me to figure that out without feeling rushed, without feeling pressure. It was just like a journey that I needed to navigate. So the first 4 months was a challenge, but then after that, it was kind of like, okay, I was able after 6 months to kind of ground myself, get a feel of grad school, understand what that process was like. And from there, once I started creating more, that really helped me to ease into, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. And then when I started working in the community around 2016, that from there was like, okay, I found my grounding, I found my footing. Let's pretty much figure out what it is that you want to do, what you love to do, and what the people need for you to be doing. So that was the
How did
journey.
you find your community there? Because a lot of people
Mm,
go to Memphis and they say it's really hard to connect and to meet people. And
yeah.
for me, like I talk to everybody, so it's not
Mhm.
hard to
Yeah,
like pick up on a community. But if you're a little reserved, you can't meet people in Memphis because
that's true.
they don't respond to that. You have to kind
Exactly.
of know who you are and push through. How did you find your community?
For sure. I found mine through nonprofit work. So when I graduated in 2016, in May, I immediately got a position, and I would say around June, at a known nonprofit in South Memphis called Knowledge Quest. And
Okay.
so that space alone opened up so many doors and avenues because nonprofit work, it's like multifaceted. So you're doing, you're the program manager this minute, educator this minute, you may be driving a bus the next minute, you may be photographer, taking pictures the next. So it's like I was able to really pick up so many different skills. And then it was a lot of networking. So I had to go out into the city and speak and share about the program. And so that in itself really opened the doors. And I was able to meet now who I consider like my soul family, my tribe, through that experience because people will come to volunteer on the farm and I would, be the one there to assist them. And so from those experiences, meeting just a variety of different kind of people that worked in the city or just lived in Memphis, really opened the doors for me to be able to connect and to really build some solid relationships.
Nice. I
Yes.
love
Mhm.
that. Even
Yes.
hearing farm in the same sentence
Mhm.
as Memphis is almost like, what? Where is this farm?
Yes. So it's in South Memphis.
Oh.
Yeah, it's in South Memphis. It's an urban farm. It was actually like a plot of land that had it was pretty much dilapidated as far as like housing and things like that. And a brother there by the name of Marlon Foster took that lot and I think the city was selling it or something like that at the time, and he basically turned it into what I like to call an oasis because it's really like an urban farm right in the middle of South Memphis. And they have high raised beds, they have chickens, they have a hoop house. The community surrounding the area is also an after school program. So a lot of children are there from grades like pre K up into eighth grade. And so it's off of Jeanette. It's on Jeanette, but it's off of Walker. And then maybe, yeah, it's on Jeanette, but off of Walker Ave. So like not far from like Gaston and really not far from downtown either. It's probably like 7 minutes from downtown.
Yeah, nice. People, you gotta go.
Yes.
Um, so you lost 90 pounds when you switched your diet from the
Mhm.
standard American diet to a plant-based lifestyle. What
Yes.
what was that like? Like, talk about that journey. That's a really big
Mhm.
accomplishment.
It definitely is. Whew, it was a journey, definitely a journey. I would say not only did I physically lose weight, but I definitely felt like emotionally, mentally, like I feel like I turned into a shifted into a whole different being or spirit, if you will, from that experience. Um, I would say the most profound part was one that I was able to reverse a lot of ailments. And so, like eczema, I grew up with that my entire life. And so that pretty much disappeared. Different digestive complications also just ridded itself from me as well.
Good.
And then the aspect of, again, when I spoke about the emotional eating, and so being able to really hone those two worlds together and realize that, I don't have to necessarily approach food in this manner. But losing that weight really it's funny because sometimes I forget. It's like people have to either remind me or I also sometimes assume that everyone knows. So thank you for sharing that. But honestly, it just felt like I released and lost a part of myself,
Mhm.
I would definitely say there was some parts of me that needed to be re-nurtured because I navigated just low self-esteem and just those energies that come with, for me, they came with being overweight, being so young. And so as I got older, it's like I was able to see myself in a different light, but I also mentally had to release some things that no longer were a part of my life based on losing weight and really seeing myself for who I truly was. And so
Mhm.
yeah, it was a journey. It still is a journey. I tell people all the time that I'm grateful for how long the processes that I went through and I didn't rush through.
Yes.
Like sometimes we go through these fat diets and want to lose weight really quickly, and I really took my time to really see every part of myself through the journey because I went through so many stages from like a size 22 to now a size 10. And so I was able to kind of see myself in so many different angles, if you will, through that experience.
How has, like, what's a good way to say this? Like, how have you kind of nurtured your self-esteem, like, through that, like, change? Because it's a shift. It is to see
It
yourself
is.
like go through, and embody the change. And I watch you online sometimes like dance and stuff, and I think
Yes.
it's really beautiful to come into yourself like that. Like how has that part of the journey been for you?
Mm. It's been hmm. I guess it's a similar journey, just taking my time with it, realizing, there's parts of myself that I've always wanted to express, but because I allow myself to be put in a box when I was younger, or just kind of not even to say yeah, I think it was more mental than anything. Even when I think about younger Yolanda, like there was a lot of mental and emotional things I was navigating. And so as I got older, and even now, I think it is to me taking the time to see myself, taking the time to dress in attire that, I would never possibly wear then, and taking my time to again, just I guess the ways in which I nurtured myself was just seeing myself at every level, at every stage. And yeah, that's a profound question. And I think I'm gonna have to take some more time to think on that for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
I remember myself when I was starting to kind of also shift my relationship with food and kind of
Mhm.
transition the way that I was feeling about myself at the time. And I was taking pictures of myself. They weren't called selfies
Mhm.
then at all.
Right.
I was taking photos of myself, and I remember people being, people always have things to say, and it didn't bother me. But people
Yeah.
were like, you're like, it's vain or it's this. And I always told them, I'm like, I'm documenting my growth. Like, I'm documenting
Absolutely.
a thing that's
Yes.
happening to me, and it has nothing to do with you. But
Mhm.
and then I took a picture not too long ago, and I was like, I remember when you guys used to say this was vain, and now it's called selfies. Everybody's doing it
Exactly.
now. So I'm a trendsetter. Okay, that's it.
Yes, and I'm grateful that you mentioned that, because I think that is what helped me as well, is sharing the journey.
Yeah.
Realizing like this is not just about me, even though it is me. It's not just about what I'm navigating. This is also for someone else to receive it, and whatever light that they receive it in. And so that definitely helped a lot as well. Just sharing the experiences and showing people the process of the experience, because it's something about, 1 minute you're this way and the next minute you pop out and it's like a whole different you. But people were able to walk with me, and even now, if someone was to go back on my social media, you can see the
Mhm.
changes and the transitions, and I think that is a beautiful thing to document and share as well. So thank you for
It
sharing that.
is.
Mhm.
Yes, it really is. Talk about sad to soul. I want you
Yes.
to be able to explain it to people. I
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, SAD to Soul stands for the Standard American Diet to Savoring and Sharing Our Lives. So, it was a program, if you will, that I was able to birth from being at the nonprofit in South Memphis. And so, basically, I would create space to do food and health demonstrations. And so, we would have a certain conversation around health, around wellness, specifically around the Standard American Diet, and just like avenues of how to transition from that, how to prepare food intentionally, and just how to navigate conversations that are oftentimes either overlooked or are uncomfortable within the Black community. Many times we talk about many things at the dinner table, but we don't want to talk about no food. It's like, let me eat what I eat,
about
you eat
that
what
salt
you eat.
content.
It's
Like
like, get up off my plate, don't worry about.
out
But
here.
well, yeah. But what I realized was that one, from my grandmother transitioning from complications of breast cancer, and then my grandfather at the time recently transitioning from complications of heart disease, I realized, I was like, yo, there's a lot of conversations that we're just not having. And we are normalizing some of these diseases to the point where it's literally killing us, And if it's not killing us, it is making us live a life that is very uncomfortable. Meaning,
Yes.
although you have, although you're able to get up every day, do what you need to do, a lot of us are not necessarily feeling good or know what it feels like to feel good in our bodies, while navigating these diseases. And so it was my way of like creating space to have those conversations, to share food demonstrations. And so that experience birthed out of the nonprofit work. I was able to do some contract work with it. And then in 2020, I kind of went online virtually and was able to share in that way. And then 2021, I was able to say, okay, Sad to Soul is definitely still a movement, but how can I create it to encompass all parts of what I want to share with the people? And that birthed Arabas Cultured Kitchen, which is the same lens, just with a different name and with more seasonings, if you will, to bring the people together.
Love that.
Yes. Thank
And
you.
also, kind of while I was looking around, I
Yes.
saw that you used your food offerings in the Afro-Indigenous Holistic Women Retreat, which I
Yes.
signed up to get those emails because I want to know when they are. Talk about that.
Absolutely, yes. So that is a retreat, a seasonal, I would say, retreat that we started in 2020. It was myself and at the time 5 other women, but now we have a total of 7 of us,
Yeah.
and we are all creating space for African women to come together and create space around spirit, movement, and food. And so we like to say we create this plate, if you will, this meal of sorts that we serve to the sisters that involves those three aspects. And we really tap into how the sisters can navigate these spaces within their own lives, within their family lives, and just honestly for their legacy. And so, with the food aspect, myself and Sister Brittany, we are the chefs of the kitchen. So, we create space for the 3 to 4 day a weekend experience to prepare breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all plant based, seasonal when we can get it, and that we're able to introduce them to a plant-based lifestyle, kind of like I like to think of it as an initiation, especially for sisters who have never consumed plant-based food. So it really opens their minds and their palates, if you will, to what it's like to consume this food on a regular basis and how their bodies can literally shift within just 3 to 4 days, because it
Yeah,
doesn't take very long, you
it
know.
doesn't take long at
Um,
all.
it doesn't. It does not. And so we prepare those foods for them and just really, again, introduce them to this plant based journey, but also not necessarily with the lens of forcing anyone to go plant based or expecting you to go vegan or anything like that, but just to show you, okay, this is an alternative way to consume foods. And so you can, I like to tell the sisters a lot of times to listen to your body and how, like, whether it's how you're feeling while you're there, like just kind of document all of those moments. So
Mhm.
when you leave here and then you start to incorporate the other foods in, you can start to see the shift. And from there, you have to make the decision of what you want to do moving forward. So it's a very beautiful space because every time we have over like 50 plus women, and just to see 50 plus black women, melanated women, if you will, in a space at the same time doing the work and learning is very it's almost like I always tell people, you just have to be there.
Yeah,
You have to be
like you talking about it is like I feel like I have
there.
goosebumps, like because I
Yes.
know when like I've been in a group space with all black women and just
Mhm.
sharing and seeing to get people just opening up, which is not something we've ever been
Mhm.
encouraged to do, is
True.
to talk about
Mhm.
how we feel and then also being nourished with food. I can only imagine it's like a
Yes,
beautiful, beautiful space.
it is. It is.
Um, you had a client, Deandra, who says that you saved her life, literally. Like
Yes.
reading her testimony, I was just like, wow, like how does that make you feel? Like knowing somebody, like such a chance meeting too, like, and you changed
Mm,
her life.
yes. Oh, wow. It's something that I don't even know if I have words for it. It's very much so like, one, I'm in gratitude for sisters, brothers, families, whomever to trust me, to guide them on this journey. And the way that I met her was very, it just goes to show that nothing is coincidental and everything is working out in divine timing. And so she ended up, I believe, was at a doctor's office and saw a flyer for one of the Sad to Soul shares that I mentioned, and was able to come into that space and share in the conversations and share in regards to the foods and just be able to be introduced, if you will, to a different lifestyle. And so, um, working with her and knowing her has been an absolute honor. And I'm just always in gratitude to be able to be received, but to create this space that will create healing and longevity for our people's lives. Because it's very, hmm, it's just, hmm, I just always feel like there's an emergency with it. It's like an urgency of us understanding that this is not a game, when it comes to what we're consuming. Like, of course, you want to eat what we want to eat and the pleasures and all those things, but if we're not shifting that lens a little bit to focus on the fuel and the actual healing aspects of it, it can come around and not work in our favor in the long run. So I'm
Yeah,
just grateful. I'm grateful for her, and I'm grateful for the many sisters and brothers that I'm able to work with.
I love that.
Yes.
Um, I am so like I am into this journey into van
Mhm.
life. You have
Oh
to talk about
yes.
it. Tell the listeners what you're getting ready to do. I'm so excited for you.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I have been just pondering since, I would say, it's probably been since 2020, since the whole world has shifted for all of us. I've just always been in a
Our
mental space.
world stopped. Like I, I would have something to tell.
Yes.
I won't have grandchildren, but
Mhm.
I like our world stopped. Like it completely just
Definitely
stopped.
stop.
And it was
Mhm.
such a blessing. Like I enjoyed myself. I don't know about
Yes,
everybody else, but I enjoyed myself. But
definitely.
what did that birth for you? Just the quiet.
Mm. Yeah, it definitely birthed. It was an opportunity for me to really sit with some things to see, okay, what is it that I really enjoy doing? Like out of all of these years from like 20, I would even say since 2014 when I first started, when I first became vegan, 2016 when I was able to work in the community, I was able to really see a lot of different avenues that I could take with it. And so 2020 was an opportunity to just sit down for a moment and say, okay, you have these skills, you've been able to create in this way. Maybe I really love this, maybe don't like this so much. So I was able to put some things on the table and really sort out. And so from that, I have been considering a food establishment, but I don't necessarily want a restaurant. And I think that's also what 2020 showed me as well. It's like, how can I still serve the people, but not necessarily do it in one standing location? And
Mhm.
so from there, of course, I started to think of pop ups and do like things like Soul Brunch Sunday and things like that. But I was like, what about a van, And moving to Atlanta in 2021 was a beautiful transition and a short period of time that I was able to live there, but very much so pivotal in my journey. Um, I was, of course, Atlanta is a little, well, I'm sure Nashville is too. Nashville is pricey when it comes to rent.
Yes.
And I am single, unmarried, and I felt like one, I don't want to pay that much money in rent to be renting.
Mm,
Two, I'm not necessarily ready to get a house to
yeah.
pay mortgage. So how can I pull these two worlds together in regards to my business and my living? Because I need to live somewhere. And
Yeah.
so the van life was just like a perfect merge of like, okay, how can I, which I'm still really working through mentally, bring these two worlds together to make it make sense. And
Yeah.
so the van life is very I've done so much research, like I literally binge watch videos and reading up on it. I've kind of laid out a blueprint with my sketching skills, and it's something that I'm looking to start this year as early as the spring as far as purchasing the van. I'll be converting it with my father, who is uh, not by trade or skill a builder or a creator, but just honestly, he's my entire life been able to fix, build, create anything.
Anything. Yes.
So I'm like, Dad, like this is us. And I think it's going to be a very beautiful experience for us to be able to connect in a whole different way. Me being in my 30s, him being my father, and being very much so like a very intentional man when it comes to building. Like he's a Capricorn, so he's very like is not only going to be right, but it's going to last forever. And so he has that energy.
I'm dating
So
a Capricorn. Like everything intentional
It's
and
going to be
give them a
very, yes.
blueprint and they can do the thing. Like
Yes,
they're gonna
yes. So
reach.
it may take a little while, but you know that this thing is gonna last forever, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought of that van being one, it's an asset, you know, even when I do decide to partner and get married, have children, and get a house, this can still be an asset to our family, to my family. And yeah, I'm super excited about it and what it will open up and bring for me to also travel, teach, share, and all of those things.
Yes. Where's the first place you want to go?
Oh, the first place. Well, it's funny. The very first place is actually Memphis. So, like,
Yeah.
maybe just go ahead
You gotta roll
and
through
drive down.
and show your
Yes.
digs.
Yeah. So, definitely driving down to Memphis so I can show my tribe and my family down there. But I would also love to, I've kind of put together this, I called it the Dirty South tour. And so I would love to do Memphis, but also head over to Texas because I've never been to Texas before. So I think I would definitely want to check Texas out.
Yes. Texas is it's a I feel like it's its own like kind of how Memphis is its
Yes.
own part of Tennessee, but like Texas has its little carve outs too. It's
Exactly.
I like Texas. It was a little too hot for me when I went
Mm, yeah.
to go at
And
night.
is it like a dry heat? Is it dry?
I don't even remember classifying it. It was just hot.
Mm.
Like as soon as you walk out of the door, you're like, "Whoa, this is a different type of temperature." Like,
Right. So I need to make sure I have my AC together in the van then. It
yes,
sounds
you will want to because it's not a like I'm just gonna roll the windows down place. Like, it was hot all day long too. Like even at night,
mm,
warm at night, like a hot at night, like still hot as it was in the daytime. It was interesting.
wow.
What month was that?
Yeah.
It might have been like May.
Mm,
May.
yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. That sounds like the heat of the moment for sure. It's the
Yes.
season.
Okay, tell the listeners about your offerings with Arabas Cultured Kitchen. Araba.
Absolutely. Arabas, yes, yes. So ACK offers several pop-ups. And so the first one would be, well, one, the location will be at the PSV store. And so this is in the Germantown, North Nashville area in the 100, I think it's 100 Taylor Street. And so it's like an art collective building that has a number of different artists and businesses. And so one of the businesses in there is a Black owned business called the PSV store. And it is a collection of Black artists and different creators. And honestly, it's just a beautiful space. And so I am offering food there on Tuesdays and Fridays. And so on Tuesdays, the time frame is around 12 to 4, but I'm looking as the spring opens up to do a later time frame. But this is kind of me testing the waters just to see
Yeah.
like how many servings, how many people come through. And so that's going to be on Tuesdays for Tostada Tuesdays. And then on Fridays, we'll do Soul Food Fridays, and that'll be a variety of different creative seasonal cuisines. Last week I did, or the week before, it was like a vegan lasagna. Time before that, for New Year's, it was like a black eyed peas, sweet potatoes, cornbread, so those very
Yeah.
comforting foods. And so that'll be as well on Fridays from around 12 to 4. And then we extend the time as the season opens up as well.
I love it.
Yes.
I asked all of my listeners and as well as my guests to just kind of talk about their relationship to spirituality and how that kind of
Mhm.
became a part of life. I think we all start with church and then,
Yes,
our relationship like evolves as we grow and get older. Like
absolutely.
what's yours like?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely started in church. I was raised in a house where so my father's side of the family were or are rather Jehovah Witnesses, and then my mom's side of the family were and are, excuse me, Christians. But in our household, neither religions, if you will, were forced on me or my sister. We could go to church. It was kind of like, you know, go to church some Sundays, but you didn't have to go every Sunday. I often wanted to go to church because I wanted to be around my granny. Um, and of course my grandfather as well, but it wasn't something that we were necessarily forced to do. So when I look back now, my upbringing was kind of like this. It was like a opportunity for me to figure it out on my own, what I was pulled towards. And it also was the same with holidays. And so, since my father's side of the family, Jehovah Witnesses don't necessarily celebrate holidays. And so, even though we would have gifts and things like that, nothing was wrapped. There was no trees, no lights. And so, it was that was our home experience. But over my grandmother's house, that's where we would actually open gifts and things like that. So again, I was able to see these two worlds. And as I got older, I definitely started to go to church more. I would say more so in my 18, 19 years. But it was around the same awakening of about 2010, 2011 when I started to shift from the church. And I think it was certain questions that I had, certain things that I would start to kind of tie in together for myself that was kind of like, oh, this doesn't really make sense to me, and I would have questions, and certain questions weren't able to be answered, rightfully so, because not everyone has answers.
Mhm.
But I think for me, that kind of started to make me feel as if there were other avenues or other um, definitely avenues or paths that I could take to still feel this oneness or to still feel this connection to God. And so, the eating, me changing my diet, I feel like that really brought me closer to myself, but also brought me closer to spirit, which essentially is all encompassing of all of us. So that was a very awakening experience. And honestly, just moving to Memphis alone, the amount of spiritual experiences that I had in the city were, I mean, I would have to, we would literally have to have a whole nother podcast episode for that. Like it was moments of it often, at the beginning frightened me because I never experienced that, like having deja vu three or
Mhm.
four times a day, not even a week, but like a day where you're like glimpse of like,
Like
I've
it's
been here before. What's happening? It's like, and it could
wow.
scare a person. It's like, what is going on? Like, is something wrong with me? And then when
Mhm.
I started to open up to those in the city that I was connecting with, they were able to shed some light. And then when I was able to do some research on Memphis, understanding that Memphis is the capital of Egypt and understanding the Nile, then the Mississippi River, then the
Yeah.
pyramid and so it was just so many points. And so it was able to, it showed me a lot of who I was becoming, and spiritually speaking, just really brought me closer to that space. And now it's continuously evolving, if you will, with me just honestly everything that I've learned from that experience to doing yoga for the past 10 years to chanting, understanding mudras, uh, ancestral connecting. And so it's like me taking all of the experiences and making it make sense for me. And so that has been my connection for sure.
I love that. That was
Yes.
so well said. I think
Thank you.
um spirituality is its own thing too. And I
Mhm.
remember myself when I was having that kind of awakening moment because we have a lot of similarities in the way that I was raised as well. It
Mhm.
was African Methodist Episcopal in Memphis
Yeah.
for me. And church was, I think when I became a certain age, it was no longer a force to go. At first you're paying,
Yeah.
put your clothes on, we're going to church. And then it started
Right.
to be like, do you want to go tomorrow? And
Mhm.
I was able to say yes or no. And mostly it was no, just because I was tired because I played sports and
Mhm.
stuff. So sometimes I was
Yeah.
just tired and didn't want to go. But when I did, it was the same for me. I went to see my grandmother. She was there. She was going
Mhm.
to be sitting in the same pew. I could sit
Yes.
behind her. She'll let me lay on her lap if I want to lay down.
Yes.
Give me a
Wow.
peppermint candy. She always
Mhm.
had something for me. So it was the same thing for me with church. And then later, you kind of go away from it as you're going through
Mhm.
school and college, and it comes a back burner. But then there was a time where I'd say like God came back to me, spirit came back
Mhm.
to me, where I
Mhm.
like needed to know what was happening around me because it was such an
Yes.
earth shift of my father
Mhm.
passed, and then I was going
Mhm.
through a divorce, and I was just like, what is what's going on? Like I need
Yes.
there's questions that need to be answered in these
Mhm.
shifts. And I kind of started my own relationship to spirituality again because I mentioned all the things that was happening and I was telling my friend, much like you, having deja vu,
Mhm.
just seeing the same number
Yes.
patterns, just every day feeling like it was different and I couldn't
Mhm.
explain it, you know.
Yeah.
And I was telling a friend, and she was like, she sent me something. She was like, I feel like this is kind of what's happening to you. And it was just literature about like having an awakening and like kind of things starting to shift. And I was like, wow, like I was
Yeah.
having all of
Powerful.
these things. And I was like, how does she find this? Where's this on the internet? So it kind of took me down a little rabbit hole into trying to be more intentional with my life
Yes.
every day.
Mhm.
Like, so I like that's kind of what happened to me as well. But it, you know, I didn't I wasn't it wasn't a move. It was still just in this space, but wanting to
Yeah.
figure out what am I doing here? What do I really
Mhm.
want to be doing here every single day? Because I'm the creator, just like
Mhm.
God. We're like He's
Yeah.
with me, and we co-create a life together.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I always like to ask people that because and you're in my stratosphere just as well because once you start to awaken, like different people stand out to you. So I'm so happy
Do.
that you
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful moment. I wanted to share this. It's like I think we all reach a certain age, and I think it may be a certain age, maybe around 25, 26, or even a little bit older or younger, but you start to ask yourself, like, who am I? And I think when
Mhm.
you ask that question, that's when the shift is about to happen.
It's
Because
about to
at
go.
no other moments you're not even really focused on that. And then it's that moment that happens. It's like, why am I here? Like, what am
Yeah,
I doing? You know? And that is a very profound experience.
it is.
Mhm.
How do you balance your mental health, your self-care, and your movement into your daily life?
Absolutely. So, the first thing is making sure that I stay active. That has been my main thing these days. And so, doing yoga has been very much so my peace and my um, the space that keeps me together, if you will. And so, just not even just the deep stretching or doing it for physical exercise, but just the calming and being able to, sit in a position for a certain period of time or, set my intention at the start of class and say, okay, like today, I set my intention. I said, take your time, like take your time through the poses. Don't feel you need to rush, even if the teacher or instructor is going at this pace, you do what your body is telling you to do. And so I kind of carry that within my day. It's like um, knowing that we were connecting today at 11, I was like, okay, take your time. You still got to go to the store. So just run to the store, get what you need, So it's just, I carried that energy from yoga throughout the practice of my day, which I think that is what yoga is. It's like, coming back to yourself, coming back to your breath, and I'm always trying to be very intentional around that as well to ensure that I am um, not rushing or not being, not actually experiencing or being present throughout my day. Because it's easy to pile a bunch of stuff on your to-do list and try to just check things off. But it's like, am I actually enjoying this journey as I am navigating this day? And so that's been the most helpful. Also, connecting with family also keeps me very much so balanced, if you will. So I have a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old niece, and the 10-year-old really is like, it's interesting. I always tell people it's like me and my sister all over again. It's like my older niece is my sister, and then my youngest niece is me. So it's like spending time with her, I'm able to see myself and like, she brings out this child within me. And that's another thing that keeps me throughout my days is, having a good time. Everything doesn't have to be so serious, even though this journey feels often urgent in regards to empowering the people and educating and serving. But, how can I make this enjoyable? And she
Yes.
really brings that part out of me. And when the weather is right, because the weather's a little iffy here in Nashville right now, but nature always brings me back as well. Just I spend a lot of time outdoors in the summer and spring, getting my bare feet on the ground. I usually work outside majority of the time when it's spring or summer, and dancing also helps too. Just moving the stagnant energies around when I can, and just balancing my day through those specific activities really carries me throughout my days.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
I've been
Yeah.
saying to myself that I need to get outside more. As
Mhm.
and I do like you said when it's warmer, but really feet in the grass. Like as a kid, I
Yes.
never had on shoes, like ever. My mother was just
Mhm.
like, "Your feet are," you know how they tell you, they give you the tall tale. Like they're gonna, like your feet are gonna be so big, like they're gonna just
Right, right.
outside without your shoes all the time. You're gonna have big, big feet. And I'm like, whatever. Like I was
Right.
stub toes, like I still have
Mhm.
scars all over my legs. I was outside uh, on the ground all the time. And I just
Mhm.
remember that making me so happy. So it's like, it's
Mhm.
definitely something
Mhm.
that I want to incorporate back into my day. I miss my feet in grass. I live
Absolutely.
in the city and I miss like lots of trees and grass because in like
Mm.
inner city Nashville, it's none of that. So I'm
It's
like, where
none
am
of
I gonna
that.
put my feet? Like dogs have used the bathroom and all of the grass over here.
Oh, exactly. So you got to be careful. Luckily, we have access to a number of parks, which is
Yes,
always really.
yes, and I am. I started kind of going back to Centennial because I used to just go all the time,
Mhm.
park the car and sit in it and kind of just
Yeah.
watch people walk and stuff. And I did that a couple times um, last year, and I definitely want to get back to
Yes.
just going there. It's such a different energy. Everybody at the park is happy, and I like to be around
Mhm.
people who are kind of in joy. I like that.
Exactly.
Um, and as far as kind of staying young, I like
Mhm.
I'm childlike a lot, and I have to ask people sometimes. I'm like, do I seem immature to you? Like, I don't know, but then also I'm like, why do we have to grow up?
Exactly.
Can't we stay youthful?
Exactly. And I think the more laughing, the more smile. Like it's just why not? It feels better, especially with the season shift right now. I this is most seasons, and these
Mhm.
seasons have been different, but I navigate the sadness naturally because of there's no sun, there's no the days just don't feel as bright, and so just to have those moments to play and just to goof off and talk to yourself, like I do that often too,
I
just
talk all the time to myself.
freestyle and just random stuff.
Sometimes I ask my boyfriend a question and he'll be like, I thought you were talking to yourself. And I'm like, it's okay. I wasn't that time. I was actually talking to you because I chat
Exactly.
with myself pretty much all through the day. Like,
Mhm.
what was I
It's
just saying?
helpful.
Yeah, and there's nothing
Yes.
wrong with that. Um, okay, I'm going to take a quick pause so we can
Okay.
hear from our sponsor. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Real Talk with Michelle podcast. This is episode number 70, Real Talk with Araba Esoun. And we do this part in the show, which is just every day I wake up, I write down three things that I'm grateful for. It's the start of kind of my morning practice, my ritual, which is things that just make me feel grounded before I have to go out in the day and,
Mhm.
deal with other energies that aren't
Yes.
my own. And I like to do this part because I like to see what other people, kind of feel, how they feel good, how they start their
Mhm.
day. Um, and tell me something today that you woke up and you were grateful for.
Absolutely. Mm. I am grateful. This morning I woke up grateful for sisterhood
Yes.
for many reasons, but two reasons was one reason I was actually connecting with a sister at high yoga this morning, and her reaching out to me to say, "Hey sis, like, are you doing yoga tomorrow? What time you want to go?" And so that accountability to make sure I get up and get it done is very beautiful. But also I was also reflecting on, or forecasting rather, on our conversation, and just in gratitude for being able to share this space with you, and just connecting with sisters, and how powerful our relations are when it comes to life, when it comes to whether it's trials or just happy spaces or whatever it may be. So I'm just really grateful for sisterhood.
I love that. And every time I
Yes.
do this with somebody and it's time for me to say what I'm grateful for, it's always
Mhm.
for the opportunity to
Mm.
connect. And
Yes.
my word this year came to me um, as collaboration because I
Yes.
admire so many people in the space that I'm with, and I'm always nervous. I'm before I reach out, I'm like, how will they receive this? And
Mm.
to know that it's received in the proper way and people also want
Absolutely.
to connect makes me feel so good. Like it just
Mhm.
there's no way that I don't understand like what that means, and giving somebody
Exactly.
else the opportunity to just come on and share their beautiful journey with people
Mhm.
who listen to my podcast. And I took a break from it because I couldn't think of fresh ideas, and the word was
Mm.
like collaborate. Like there's other people who have
Yes.
stories to tell that are beautiful. You don't have to, wreck your brain to think of something because you follow all
Mhm.
these people who do these things that
Yes.
you
There's so
admire.
many stories.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I
Beautiful.
relish in the opportunity to be able to connect with people like you,
Mhm.
just dynamic people in my view. So, like, I admire you. I love the work that you do. Your food is
Thank
great.
you.
I've tasted it, guys. Like, it's so good.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And you definitely need to reach out to her and figure out where she's serving her offerings because the energy is in the food and it's
Yes.
great. I love it. Thank you for my
Thank
tostada.
you.
'Cause I keep
Yeah.
tostadas in my house because I was cooking stuff with them. I'm like, you can put quinoa and black beans and eggs and
Mhm.
salsa. And I always kind of did that with it. So when I saw yours, I was like, oh, I gotta taste hers. Like I make this for myself, but I have to taste hers.
Yes.
And what you mentioned about just opening up people's minds to a different
Mhm.
way to eat is just so great because I think I had cashew cheese for the first time and I was like, I don't
Mm.
need regular cheese. Like this is great for me. Like the
Exactly.
flavor is here.
Mhm.
Um and I had kind of like slowly kind of went eating more veggies, less meat because meat just
Mhm.
started it just didn't taste as good to me. I don't know
Mhm.
what happened, and just kind of doing a little research, and I looked up um I think I like just happened into like blood type diet, and my blood type is like primarily vegetarian. It was, and so I was like, ah,
Mm.
okay, so it makes sense, like because my
Yeah.
body was wanting other things, and it just meat was not. It just wasn't making me feel like you said good after
Exactly.
I ate it, and so I was just like, okay, so it just chicken was. And chicken, my body just really doesn't like it. It just doesn't.
Mm.
So I'm
Yeah.
just like, and
And
it's
it's so important to listen to that, you know.
Mhm.
I think, and I often share that with clients that I often call cousins,
Yes,
but
I like
to
that.
not get fixated on one type of eating or one type of lifestyle. It's like listen to your body. And oftentimes I share to do more so like intuitive eating. You know, sometimes it's like, and I was craving this the other day. And it's like, well, you're not just craving that just to be craving it. That's your body communicating to you that this is something that I need. You know, if it's like a banana or if it, even if it's salmon or even if it's chicken, it's like
Yes,
perhaps your body needs that right now. So it's telling you that. So it's like acting on it, but don't make it a daily thing if it's something unhealthy, but also just listening to your body because it's a vessel. It's literally running the show, you know. It should be.
exactly.
Mhm.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming to chat with me. I'm full. Like today,
Yeah,
like I get to
same.
take this with me. I'm like, oh, it's such a great way to start the day. Um,
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Talk with Michelle podcast. And Araba, I want you to tell everybody how they can find you.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, I want to give thanks as well for this opportunity, this sharing. And you can find me on Instagram. So it's going to be Araba, Araba dot Esoun, and that's Esoun. Or you can find me on my website. It's going to be arabasculturedkitchen.com. And again, at the PSV store, if you're in Nashville, so that's going to be every Tuesday and Friday, and I'll be running this through the weeks. And I would love for you all to subscribe to my newsletter, which is the Black Pantry, and you can find that on arabasculturedkitchen.com.
Thank you so much for, oh
Thank
my gosh, I'm so
you.
happy. Guys, I will put all of her information in the show notes as well. And thanks for tuning into the Real Talk with Michelle podcast. This is episode number 70, Real Talk with Araba Esoun. And
Yes.
I'll talk to you guys again soon. Thank you. Bye, guys.